Yeah, that works. That works.
Begin?
Yes.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 7. Abhashascha nirodhascha
Vasascha nirodhascha.
Yatostyadhyavashiyate
Yatustatya vasiyate.
Sa ashraya param brahma
Sa ashraya param brahma.
Paramatmeti shabdyate
Paramatmeti shabdyate.
Abhashascha nirodhascha
Apasascha nirodhascha.
Yatostyadhyavashiyate
Yatustatya vasiyate.
Sa ashraya param brahma
Sa ashraya param brahma.
Paramatmeti shabdyate
Paramatmeti shabdyate.
Abhashascha nirodhascha
Vasascha nirodhascha.
Yatostyadhyavashiyate
Yatustatya vasiyate.
Sa ashraya param brahma
Sa ashraya param brahma.
Paramatmeti shabdyate
Paramatmeti shabdyate. Avasascha nirodhascha.
Abhashascha nirodhascha
Yatostyadya vasiyate.
Yatostyadhyavashiyate
Sa ashraya param brahma.
Sa ashraya param brahma
Paramatmeti shabdyate.
Paramatmeti shabdyate.
Avasascha nirodhascha
Avasascha nirodhascha.
Yatostyadhyavashiyate
Yatostyadya vasiyate.
Sa ashraya param brahma
Sa ashraya param brahma.
Paramatmeti shabdyate
Paramatmeti shabdyate. Would anyone else online like to recite the verse?
Abhasascha nirodhascha
Avasascha nirodhascha.
Yatosti ajavasiyate
Yatostyadya vasiyate.
Sashraya param brahma
Sa ashraya param brahma.
Paramatmeti shabdyate
Paramatmati Shabdyate.
Abhasascha nirodhascha
Vasascha nirodhascha.
yatosti adyavasyate
Yatostyadhyavasiyate.
sa ashraya param brahma
Sashraya param brahma.
paramatmeti shabdyate.
Paramatmati Shabdyate.
Anyone else? Okay. Abhasha,
Abhasa,
the cosmic manifestation.
the cosmic manifestation.
Cha,
Cha,
and
and
Nirodha,
Nirodha,
and it's winding up.
and it's winding up.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Yataha,
Yata,
from the source.
from the source.
Asti,
Asti,
is.
is.
Adyavasiyate,
Adyavasyate,
become manifested.
become manifested.
Saha,
Saha,
he.
he.
Ashraya,
Ashraya,
reservoir.
reservoir.
Param,
Param,
the supreme.
the supreme.
Brahma,
Brahma,
being.
being.
Paramatma,
Paramatma,
the super soul.
the super soul.
Iti,
Iti,
thus.
thus.
Shabdyate,
Shabdyate,
called.
called.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, He is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. Purport. Synonyms for the Supreme Source of all energies, as explained in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, are Janmad Yasya Yataha, Vedanti Tat Tatvavidas Tatvam Yajganam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate, called Parabrahma, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The word iti used here in this verse completes the synonyms and thus indicates Bhagavan. This will be further explained in the later verses, but this Bhagavan ultimately means Lord Krishna, because the Srimad Bhagavatam has already accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. The original source of all energies, or the summum bonum, is the absolute truth, which is called Param Brahma, etc. And Bhagavan is the last word of the absolute truth. But even with the synonyms for Bhagavan, such as Narayan, Vishnu, and Purusha, the last word is Krishna, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matta Sarvam Pravartate, etc. Besides that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the representation of Lord Krishna as a sound incarnation of the Lord. Krishna Sva Damopagate Dharma Jnana Divisaha Kalo Nashta Drisham Esha Puranarko Dunodita. This is Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 3rd chapter, text 43. Thus, by general conclusion, Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of all energies, and the word Krishna means that. And to explain Krishna, or the science of Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam has been prepared. In the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this truth is indicated in the questions and answers by Sutta Goswami and great sages like Shonaka, and in the 1st and 2nd chapters of the canto, this is explained. In the 3rd chapter, this subject is more explicit, and in the 4th chapter, even more explicit. In the 2nd canto, the absolute truth as the personality of Godhead is further emphasized, and the indication is the Supreme Lord Krishna. The summary of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses, as we have already discussed, is succinct. This Supreme Personality of Godhead in the ultimate issue is confirmed by Brahma in his Brahma Samhita as Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. So it is concluded in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The complete subject matter is elaborately explained in the 10th and 11th cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the matter of the changes of the manus or manvantars, such as Svayambhuva Manvantar and Chakshusha Manvantar, as they are discussed in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna is indicated. In the 8th canto, the Vaivashvata Manvantar explains the same subject indirectly, and in the 9th canto, the same purport is there. In the 12th canto, the same is further explained, specifically regarding the different incarnations of the Lord. Thus, it is concluded by studying the complete Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Sri Krishna is the ultimate samam bonam, or the ultimate source of all energy. And according to the grades of worshippers, the indications of the nomenclature may be differently explained as Narayan, Brahma, Paramatma, etc. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinobandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So beg for the blessings of the assembled devotees that we can say something for the pleasure of Shri Radha Krishna, Krishna Balaram. And may our words be aligned with Srila Prabhupada and Guru Parampara. May all the devotees be benefited. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nice to be with you all this morning. This auspicious day, Balaram Jayanti. So just wanted to continue to read from Bhagavatam and then also share something about Lord Balaram. So again, I'll read this verse. This is Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 7. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of the cosmic manifestation, as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus he is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. So continuing on in the Bhagavatam, in the first verse of this chapter, Shukadeva Goswami lists the 10 subject matters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he gives a brief explanation of each topic in the next few verses. You know, I used to, when I first became interested in Krishna consciousness, I would write down all these details, all this information, all these different terms, and then some years passed and I thought, what's the value of all this? You know, I have all these notebooks with all these technical terms, and it just seems like information. But then later, going back to it again, I'm realizing there is a great value even in these kind of technical descriptions, and it kind of gets into you in a certain way, and there's a logic to it. There's a logic, and it helps with understanding. So when we look at the 10 subject matters of the Bhagavatam, well, it may just seem kind of informational. There's a kind of logic to those 10 subjects. And it gets inside of us, and we start to, it gives us a certain order of things. And I feel like it leads to a deeper understanding. So just wanted to share that because I went through different stages of thinking, oh, this is great stuff. And then thinking like, what am I going to do with all this? But then later again, going back and realizing it has an effect. It has a power. It's the Bhagavatam. So even we can make an effort sometimes to try to understand technical things. And there's a certain power in that. And there's a certain understanding that can come from that. So I wanted to just briefly go through these 10 subjects, just very brief, because this is what this section is focusing on. So again, the first verse gives all 10. And then the next several verses gives a brief explanation of each. And so the first topic is Sarga, which means creation. And it means the creation of Mahavishnu. All the ingredients are coming from Mahavishnu, all the ingredients of this world. Which means those ingredients are him. Because, you know, when we want to build a house or do something, we go and buy some materials and some wood, but Krishna doesn't do that. These materials emanate from him. So God is very close at all times. He is actually everything, even the material elements. So the Sarga, the creation, comes from Mahavishnu. And then the next topic is Visarga, which is the secondary creation from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma, he takes those ingredients, he didn't create them, but he uses them and then also creates in a certain way and arranges things. Lord Brahma is said to be made of intelligence. He's made of intelligence. So that actually he does everything very expertly in the material creation. The next topic is very interesting, the way Prabhupada describes it. It's called Sthanam. And again, if you look at the verse that gives a brief description of Sthanam, it says, Stitir Vaikunta Vijay. And Prabhupada explains this means, so all the elements came out, all the creation is there, now what? Stitir Vaikunta Vijay. Now everyone has to acknowledge victory to the Lord of Vaikunta. This is considered to be Sthanam is also called sometimes the right situation. The right situation is to observe everything and to realize God is great, the Lord of Vaikunta, victory to the Lord of Vaikunta. That's in the purport. You can see when he's describing this particular topic, he puts it in that way. One has to acknowledge basically that God is supreme. So when we see the creation, when we see the miracle that's all around us, all these different elements, fire and water, the ocean, whatever it may be, the right situation, the right consciousness, the right sentiment is to think that victory, all glories to the Lord of Vaikunta. So Stitir Vaikunta Vijaya, victory to the Lord of Vaikunta. So that's the right situation. That's the right consciousness to have. And if one has it, one can actually declare that from within and mean that. The next topic is Poshanam. Then one comes under the protection of the Lord. See, so there's the way Prabhupada describes it in these purports, there is a kind of logic to this. Protection. One is then protected under the shelter of the Lord for one who can actually speak that and live that all glory to the Lord. The next topic is Uttaya, which is described as the creative impetus. It means that all the jivas that are here, we also have so many desires. And because we have all of these desires, material desires, the next subject matter is Manvantar, because there's a need for guidance. So the manus that come at different time periods, long time periods, a Manu will come and they give a kind of law of that particular time, right? The laws of Manu. It's a guidance. It's to help those who have material desires get back on the path of perfection. You know, it's through understanding what our occupational duty is and linking that to the Supreme. So, and what's included in that is Isha Anukata, the science of God is also given. This is the next subject matter, the 7th subject matter of the Bhagavatam. And then the 8th subject is Nirodha, which is mentioned in this verse as well. So we start with Sarga, the creation. The whole material world goes out from Mahavishnu, and Nirodha means like the return. The winding up, Prabhupada says here also, the coming back. And because this goes on again and again, the going out and the coming back, the whole creation, right? We compare it also to the breath that we're constantly breathing out, breathing back in. So Mahavishnu is also breathing out, breathing back in. Everything has this duality, coming and going in the material world. And so because that's constantly happening, even the creation is withdrawn and then comes back out, the living beings, you know, they're withdrawn and they come back out with the creation, so long they still have material desires, so long they haven't reestablished their relationship with Krishna. So because that goes on again and again, the next topic, the 9th topic is liberation, mukti, how to get free from that, how to free ourselves from the cycle of coming and going again and again. And then finally, the 10th subject matter, and the verse today is giving a further explanation of what that means and the purport. The 10th subject matter is called Ashraya, the final shelter. Sri Krishna himself is the final shelter, the summum bonum, as Prabhupada points out, the last word in the absolute truth. And actually, even it's described in Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto that one can be liberated in the Brahmajyoti. The Brahmajyoti is eternal, but it's not our eternal shelter. So even one who attains liberation in the Brahmajyoti, it's described because they haven't established a relationship with Krishna, they actually also have to return to the material world at some point. It's hard to say when that point is, but the complete purification of the heart has not taken place, right? Because if we really think about the desire for liberation, it's still my desire. I want to be free. There's so much suffering, put an end to it. And this is still like there's a seed of a still personal focus that's there. But pure bhakti means Krishna's pleasure, not mine. And that consciousness gives one the final and ultimate shelter of Krishna himself. So Krishna is the Ashraya, the ultimate shelter. So there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Purusho Prakriti Stohi, that when the spirit, the pure spirit comes down into the material energy. And as soon as the spirit comes down into the material world, comes down into the material energy, Prakriti, then immediately there's a lack. Immediately there's a need. And therefore, the next part of that verse, Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan. Then because there's a lack and there's a need, now we're in the material world. So what is around us? The modes of nature. And because we become impatient about that lack, we reach out to those things that are surrounding us to get some relief, to get some fulfillment. Because we've separated from who we truly are in our relationship with Krishna, there's a need that develops. And then instead of like facing that need and considering, what is it? What's the cause? What's the solution? We just take quick temporary solutions that are surrounding us, and in that way we get entangled. So it says, Bhunkte prakriti jangunan. One starts to enjoy the modes of material nature. And what does that cause? Sat asat yoni janmasu. It causes birth and death again and again, sometimes in good wombs and sometimes in evil wombs, it says. Sat asat yoni janmasu. Prabhupada says in good and evil species, but yoni also means wombs. So one takes birth again and again in good and evil wombs. It's the material world, the duality of good and evil, right? We have even in the Bible, in Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve. There were two trees, and God, the choice was there that you can have the tree of life, or you can eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So that choice was there with the living entity, the tree of life, and then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And because Adam, we know his choice, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then at that point when he ate that fruit from that tree, then everything changed. And actually God approached him and became stern and said, now that you have eaten from this tree, he said different things, like now you have to work hard to get your food. You know, in other words, God became stern. Now there's a descent into the material world of the dualities, and so many things here are necessary. And there's the law of karma, which is also, you can say, you know, the law of cause and effect, cause and consequence. So we become entangled in this because of that choice. And you know, this word in the Gita also, bhunkte prakriti janguna. Bhunkte also means to eat. So this idea of enjoying the modes of nature, eating, somehow taking it into us, and then it has a, you know, that you are what you eat. So whatever we eat and whatever you enjoy, you eat in a sense. You take it into you. It becomes a part of you. You know, there's in different myths, there's I've come across this pattern that I've seen a few times, that sometimes in different, you know, myths, Greek myths and mythology, so forth, there's stories of beings passing through different realms. And it's said that if they eat the food of a particular realm, they become stuck in that realm. It's like you become acclimated by eating the food, certain food, by taking it in, you become like that thing. You become acclimated, which makes sense for us because we understand by eating prasadam, what are we taking in? By taking prasadam, by offering food and taking prasadam, this is of the spiritual world. This is of, when it's offered to Krishna, this is for Vrindavan that we're taking in. When we take in the association of devotees, when we take in the holy name, when we take in the Bhagavatam, this is also changing us from within. If we take it in the right way and we're able to digest also. So we have to be receptive to spiritual things, and then we begin to awaken our spiritual nature. But by eating or enjoying just the material modes, then that also gets inside of us, and that also causes, again, birth again and again within good and evil wombs again. So there's been a loss of shelter. We've lost the shelter, our ultimate shelter. And now we're being, by the mercy of Lord Balaram, by the mercy of Balaram, and the mercy of Guru, we've been reminded of what the true shelter is. What the ashraya, what the shelter is, Krishna himself, directly Krishna. So much in this purport is emphasizing Krishna's supreme position. Prabhupada quotes a verse in the purport here, which is called in the Bhagavatam the Paribhasha Sutra. It means different books have one verse that help to illuminate the entire book. And if you don't understand that one verse, you don't understand the whole book. And if you understand that one verse very clearly, then everything else falls into place and fits. So the Acharyas have identified the Paribhasha Sutra of the Srimad Bhagavatam is a verse Prabhupada quotes here in the purport. Ete chamsha kala pumsam Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. Where it's described that the incarnations of the Lord are like waves in the ocean. How many waves are there in the ocean? They keep coming. It's unlimited. And then the Bhagavatam gives a description, or it mentions 10 particular incarnations. And Krishna's included in that. So, number 1, number 2, number 3, all the different 10 particular incarnations are mentioned. Krishna's included. And then it concludes, the next verse concludes by saying, so all of these, incarnations that have been mentioned are the Supreme Lord. But specifically, it points out Krishna's too, but Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan. Krishna's too, Bhagavan Swayam. But Krishna is actually the supreme source of all of them. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. So very clearly points out in that section. And this is with this understanding, then one can read the entire Bhagavatam and things can fit into place in the proper way. Because, sometimes Bhagavan is mentioned as other, Shiva is mentioned as Bhagavan also in Bhagavatam, and Narada Muni even sometimes is called Bhagavan. He's a great person who has great power and so forth. So therefore, this one verse is like illuminates everything, it gives you the proper understanding. So Krishna is known as Swayam Bhagavan, Swayam Rupa. It's his original form. And Swayam Rupa is described that what that means is that no other form of God depends on anyone else or any other being. So when we talk about Narayan and Vaikuntha, it's actually said that his opulence is dependent on Krishna. So he's not the Swayam Rupa. He's not the original personality of Godhead, because the different forms, Nrsingadev and all the different forms of the Lord, they're dependent actually on Krishna for their opulence and also for their sweetness. This is described by Jiva Goswami. But when you come to Krishna, he's that being who is not dependent on anyone else. His nature is just sweetness, and his nature is all opulence and power. And so that's Swayam Rupa. That's the original form. That's what it means, according to Jiva Goswami. And then now coming to Balaram, bringing Balaram into all this. Mm-hmm. So the Swayam Rupa expands himself. That original form expands himself. And then that's called Swayam Prakash. And what does that mean? It means, so when he expands in this way, it's still Krishna. The expansion that comes from Krishna is still Krishna, but there are two differences. The complexion of the form itself is different, and the sentiment or the mood is different, but it's still Krishna. This Swayam Prakash is still Krishna, but it's a different complexion and a different mood or temperament. So Balaram is that first expansion. The Swayam Prakash, he's called Vaibhav Prakash. Again, these are technical terms, but The science is amazing, isn't it? The whole science is there. It's been given. This is the science of God. This is one of the topics of the 10 subject matters of the Bhagavatam. So Balaram, the complexion changes. Krishna, we know, is Sham. He's dark. Balaram is very fair complexion. He's considered to be like a new moon, like the white moon. Sometimes he's described. And then also his mood changes. So this is what's very interesting for us to consider. So Krishna, his mood is called Sevya Abhiman, that he is the object of service. He's the served one. He's the one who's served by all. Balaram, so that difference in mood, what makes him different, he's Krishna, but what makes him different is he has what's called Sevaka Abhiman, which he is in the mood of the server, the servitor of Godhead. So the energy that he carries, the essence of what he is that he's like the facilitator of service to Krishna. That's the difference between the two. They're both Krishna. They're both the Supreme Lord. One is the object of all service, the served, and one is the servitor, the facilitator. And that's why Lord Balaram is Guru Tattva. He is the what's called the Akanta Guru Tattva. He's the Samasti Guru, which means that he's the very embodiment of Guru, because what does Guru do? Guru has that same energy, trying to facilitate service back to Krishna. So that is Balaram. That's who he is, and therefore he's always doing that. He's always facilitating service to Krishna. And he expands that service everywhere. Even Krishna, even when we hear about Vrindavan and Vaikuntha, all the objects there, this is considered to be an expansion of Balaram's energy to serve Krishna, because objects, environments, everything is serving in a sense. Things serve. This is called Shanta Bhav, the Bhav of Shanta, which is kind of like like we're sitting in this room and there's a chair and there's a floor, there's, outside there are trees. So why is all that there? It's actually to give pleasure to Krishna. It's also serving Krishna. So Balaram, he expands himself as all of the paraphernalia of the spiritual world. It's like when you offer worship to Krishna, you have a tray. So the tray, the incense, there's a bell, there's a little water bowl, all of that is the paraphernalia, and it's meant for the worship of Krishna. So Balaram kind of expands as all the paraphernalia surrounding Krishna. And all of that is meant to be used in the service of Krishna. So that's what he's all about. That's why he is the embodiment of Guru Tattva. So now another interesting thing is Balaram, he does this. He offers everything in service to the Lord. He does this in every realm of existence. So in Vrindavan, he manifests as the whole environment of Vrindavan and everything that's there for Krishna's pleasure. And then he expands in Vaikuntha, he expands as Mahasankarshan, and he also provides all the objects of Vaikuntha. And then in the material world, Balaram expands into Mahavishnu. Right? There's a kind of an expansion of an expansion, Sankarshan, but it's all coming from Balaram. And then Mahavishnu creates all of the material elements, and then all the jivas also are coming. So that shows us who we are, what we are. You know, if we think about this, that Balaram is all about expanding service to Krishna, and he does that in every realm of existence, including our realm, which means everything here, including us, we are just meant, we are like paraphernalia for the service of the Lord. That's who we are. So we might think, well, what is this Balaram Purnim? What is this festival all about? You know, what does it have to do with me? But here's the answer. That Balaram, he has that Sevaka Abhiman, the mood of service to the Supreme, and he expands outward, expands that service everywhere, including the material creation. And then everything in material creation, the idea to grasp is that everything is meant for the service of Krishna, including me. That's my purpose. And we are reminded of that by the representatives of Balaram, the Guru. So this goes from Samasti. So Balaram is considered to be Samasti Guru, which means he's like the undivided Guru. And then there's what's called Vyasti Guru, which is the divided gurus, the many gurus that come and exist in this material world, carrying that energy of Balaram, and then reminding the fallen souls of what they have forgotten, that they're servants of Krishna. So the true guru is, the bona fide guru is in contact with that energy of Balaram, and he is, you know, he or she is giving that to the living beings who have forgotten. That's what a true guru is. That's what a true guru does. They're actually empowered by what Prabhupada explains, the strength of Lord Balaram. This is his spiritual strength that comes into the heart of a person, and then that person acts as guru. So I wanted to read one section of the Bhagavatam, and then we'll maybe have some discussion on these topics. But I came across a purport by Prabhupada that I really loved. That really had a powerful impact, and I'm trying to just keep reading it and sharing it with everyone so that it also stays within me. And I can also share Prabhupada's words with others. But this is from the 3rd canto, chapter 27, text 25. I'll read the verse, and then I wanted to read a little part of the purport. So Prabhupada's distinguishing the difference between the dreaming state and the waking state. And not just like our dream at night, and then we wake up in the morning, but more like, what does it mean that the living entity, even while awake, is in a state of dreaming, is disconnected from a higher reality? And what does it mean to wake up? Because this is the mission of the Guru, to wake up the souls that are asleep. The soul is asleep. So, but the mind is active, the material mind, the material senses, the material intelligence, everything is very busy, but the soul is dormant. And when we hear words from a pure devotee, it begins to awaken, and we start to become a little attracted, and we get drawn in because of the power in those words, because those words are the spiritual strength, the spiritual energy of the Lord, of Lord Balaram. The Shakti is there, and we're awakened by it. So this is the verse. It says, this is Kapila Dev. In the dreaming state, one's consciousness is almost covered, and one sees many inauspicious things. But when he is awakened and fully conscious, such inauspicious things cannot bewilder him. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, in contaminated consciousness, one sees everything to be for his own enjoyment. But in pure consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, he sees that everything exists for the enjoyment of Krishna. So we can go out today and just, I just been telling myself this throughout the day. Everything exists for the enjoyment of Krishna. Okay, if that's true, then I also exist for the enjoyment in Krishna. So how can I express that right now? you know, or I'm seeing some, going food shopping. Well, I see all this food and I think, oh, great, for my enjoyment. Let me get all my favorite things. But to flip that, everything exists for the enjoyment of Krishna. There's a nice class where Prabhupada gives about shopping at the market. And he says, well, one should bring this consciousness. What will Krishna enjoy today? What can I make? You can envision yourself cooking something nice for Krishna. So you're dealing with people throughout the day, right? At our work, or we come, everything exists for the enjoyment of Krishna. How do I manifest that in my conversation with this person? I don't know. We have to think about that. But if we keep that one line in our hearts and remind ourselves, everything, me, objects, nature, beauty of this material creation. You see a flower. This is coming from Krishna, but it also exists for the enjoyment of Krishna. Let me offer it to Krishna. So it's a very elevated consciousness, and Prabhupada describes in this purport how this is the difference between being asleep and being awake. When you're asleep, you think everything exists for my enjoyment and for maybe some other's enjoyment around me. But when you're fully awake to pure consciousness, to Krishna consciousness, you think everything is for the enjoyment of Krishna. So I'll just continue the purport and then we'll stop. That is the difference between the dream state and wakefulness. The state of contaminated consciousness is compared to dream consciousness. And Krishna consciousness is compared to the awakened stage of life. Actually, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, the only absolute enjoyer is Krishna. One who can understand that Krishna is the proprietor of all the three worlds and that he is the friend of everyone is peaceful and independent. As long as a conditioned soul does not have this knowledge, he wants to be the enjoyer of everything. This is all illusion. For one cannot benefit anyone. Prabhupada says, if one wishes to benefit his fellow brother, he must awaken his dormant Krishna consciousness. The Krishna consciousness position is that of pratibhuta, which means pure consciousness. So this is related, this is significant with today's, the auspicious day of Balaram Purnim, Balaram Jayanti. That very first expansion from Krishna is the servitor of Godhead. And then Lord Balaram desires to expand that everywhere in all realms of existence, including our realm, the material world. And so the purpose of everything is to reawaken, reconnect to that attitude, that consciousness of service to the Supreme Lord. And if we do so, our connection to Krishna is reestablished and one achieves that ultimate shelter that we're all needing and wanting and hankering for at all times. So appreciate the opportunity to share, and we'll open it up if anyone has any thoughts, comments, questions. Be grateful to hear from all of you. Hare Krishna.
I appreciate it. Well, I got listening to you. I got clear some deeper understanding of the rhyme and reason of the categories of Bhagavatam. Creation, secondary creation. Okay, making some connection. But now, like, oh, yeah, okay. Actually, just last night, Melanie and I were speaking a bit about the third canto and about she was quoting some verses about the demigods concept that's about maintaining the status quo and like that. And so right, the desire, the living entity, and okay, let's regulate those desires. Yeah. That's what the manas do. In a sense, it's liberation, but then ultimate liberation. So that was helpful. I appreciated hearing personal process over the years and decades. Like, I'm into all this detailed knowledge. In our Bhagavad Gita group, we recently completed chapter 10. So it would remind me, because what you expressed reminded me of chapter 10. And then, so chapter 10 is very similar to chapter 10 of Canto 2, because it's so much detailed knowledge. You know, here's a few dozen ways you can remember me. Then it's like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, okay. But then Krishna says, and then Krishna says, all these beautiful, mighty, glorious creations spring from the spark of my splendor. And then he sort of says, and what's the point for all this detail? Of course, there is a point. What's the point? Because because this is just a single fragment of myself, just an expansion, Paramatma super soul. I pervade and support this entire universe. So just your personal process paralleled that.
Yeah, it's an interesting connection.
Right. It's just, and that's so much about these 10 categories of the Bhagavatam. That in one side, the point is Krishna. But the idea is now we absorb ourselves, we delve into the categories, and then we appreciate Krishna. And sure, we don't hear much about cowherd boys or gopis delving into all the details, because they're absorbed in the source. And so it's all true. Let's get into the details. This is non-different from Krishna. It leads us to that pure bhakti. And then when someone's there, then they're not particularly interested in the details, but it might be there so as to share about them anyway. So I appreciated your process.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a nice point you made with the 10th chapter, also of the Gita. Like, what is the point of this?
Yeah.
But really, if you look at those verses, the point is there, and like there are ways we can bring that even into our life now.
Yes.
Krishna, when you see something, Krishna is the best of that particular thing.
Yes.
It almost like represents him in this material world. Like he says of priests, I am Brihaspati. So you might think, well, that's kind of just information irrelevant.
Yeah.
But the way I see that chapter, and I like to see that chapter, is that when you think of a priest, what qualities come to mind? When you think of the qualities, think of like a pure priest, and then those qualities are actually attributes of Krishna coming through that person. And he identifies himself in that chapter with the best of each category. But it's a way of saying that, I am that. It's almost like Krishna's attributes coming through a person in this world, or a demigod, or whatever it may be. And in that way, it's very valuable to hear those things. And we start to see, well, actually, it's Krishna's nature and qualities and attributes that are coming through all these beings that he mentioned, Of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. So many. So that's a nice chapter, but I appreciate your connection to that. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments, questions?
I do. I'm not sure how to phrase my question. Hi, Krishna Ghanashyam.
Krishna Mani Devi.
I really loved your class. It was so stimulated for my intellect, for my philosophical mind, and also in a devotional way of really, because the way to develop love of God and that devotion is by understanding Krishna's victory, like you said, like Krishna's victory, such an intelligence behind like all that creation and all the organization and all the weight, the agency of even action and reaction. It's such a victory, and to appreciate Krishna as a person within that, and also appreciate the point of like we are made for his enjoyment. We are made for his enjoyment as me, like whatever, and everybody else and everything else is all in service. So I appreciate all those points you made. This morning when I got up, I was under the shower. Shower is a good time for me to think. So, and I was thinking, well, today I really want to pray for spiritual strength. You know, Lord Balaram is there for our spiritual strength, and I feel I want spiritual strength. I want more determination. I want more sincerity. I want more dedication. I want that humph of, like that kind of thing. Like yesterday, we were speaking during the program at Anandini, like Dear Govinda we were speaking about like the Olympic athlete. They do so much to get that medal. They are capable of anything. They are capable of getting up very early in the morning and working hard all day and following a very specific diet or accepting so much and following their guru, like so to the T, they follow their guru. They don't deviate from their guru. And I feel like, I want that. I don't care about the medals. We have the medals. The medals is love of God, is to be with Krishna. So I was thinking of that, and I said, Lord Balaram is the one who can give me that. He's the one who gives spiritual strength. And at the same time, I'm not sure like how to approach him, because he's a Adigu, and then everything in the service, and then is all the paraphernalia, and there's something that's missing for me in my understanding or in my relationship, or like seeing him as a person, and then it's not spreading as cups or the Midonga or the Kartal. So that's what's I'm not clear what my question is, but is really how to approach Lord Balaram and how to get his help to develop that kind of spiritual strength.
No, I appreciate what you shared, and it's for me it's Balaram being the kind of embodiment of the spiritual master, and then his manifestations of the spiritual masters that are sent out, and so the relationship through Srila Prabhupada. You think about Prabhupada's like determination and strength. I mean, how much he was actually accessing the power of Lord Balaram. Balaram has the plow, right? So it's also described in some places that the heart is like, has to be plowed by Balaram. The spiritual master also, that we want the seed of love of God, the Bhakti Lata Bij to grow, but the heart is very rocky. Like if you have the soil is very hard and rocky, and there's boulders and there's weeds, you can't really put that seed of love of God there where it can grow nicely. So Balaram also, the strength of Balaram is a desire, to connect to Balaram, a desire for the plow, not, it doesn't have to be this intense, because if we're humble, it doesn't have to be so intense. If we're not humble, sometimes the plowing is very, very rough, but it can also be just a way of just removing what's blocking. And that comes, this term for Balaram, Samasti Guru, which means he's like the complete, undivided Guru. And then by connecting to his energies, the pure devotees, they become the Vyasti Guru, which means like the divided expansion of Balaram. So the relationship with Balaram is directly through Srila Prabhupada, and in this way, that determination. But I think what's so nice about what you shared is that I think the way that the determination really, we are already determined in the soul. On the soul level, we're already determined. We have full determination. So all we really need is the longing for it and to become receptive to Balaram's energy, and not that we have to like do it ourselves. Like I'm going to just like push myself harder. I mean, we have to do a little of that, right? To kind of prove ourselves. But at the same time, it's not going to be like my strength that now comes forth. So somehow keeping in mind that really it's a prayer for that strength to awaken. And Balaram, we can pray to Balaram for that. Like, Balaram, you are spiritual strength personified. I have no strength. I have no strength. That's the truth. But if your energy can enter into me, that will help me, you know, reawaken who I truly am. All determination is already there. We think in the material world, we judge everything materially. Some people, this person's very determined, this person's not. This person has 75% more determination than this person. And this is all just a material calculation of things. Actually, none of us have determination so long we're in material consciousness, because what's coming out, what looks like determination, of the material modes just acting through us. And identification is very strong. And so in one sense, on the spiritual level, we're not determined, we're just covered. But the beginning of determination is to long for it and to see that I have no determination. Balaram, please, only by your grace. So I think what you shared is the path to determination, is to express to Balaram through prayer that we long for that determination, and only by his grace can we activate it. So, just some thoughts.
I appreciate what you said there, because the intense struggle for clearing the painful suffering struggle to pull the weeds. That's just because I'm really attached to the weeds, or the big stones and boulders in the field. Like, they're very precious to me. So then, but if I'm not attached to them, it's actually joyfully performed. Inspired by Sri Balarama.
Yes.
It seems that's one of the key of what you express, and what I found one of the key of spiritual life is to have that deep feeling of unqualification that, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur expressed it so nicely in his songs, but like to really deeply feel that disqualification. I have no strength, I have no determination, I have no qualification, and like to really go deep into feeling that state, then in that helpless, weak space, then we can receive the mercy of the Lord. While also, it's like, it needs not to be grungy kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like almost says to track, to really feel that sense of I'm weak, I have no determination, I'm so unqualified, and at the same time I'm a servant of Krishna, and my responsibility is to follow the order of Guru and Krishna and to follow their path. So to not wallow in low self-worth, and at the same time to really know my position in this material world. Yeah, I really like that you pointed that out.
Yeah, that was very nicely explained. It's like, sometimes I'm walking around and I'm going to work, and I'm thinking like, I can't do anything, And but like you said, there's what I'm discovering now is there's a kind of strength in that, feeling that, like really feeling it, It's kind of like because you're in reality, like, so the material, everyone's so active, so many things are happening, but it's under the material energy, and the soul is asleep, as we were hearing from this purport also that I was reading. The soul kind of goes to sleep and then has a dream, and this, what we consider real, is actually that dream, and we're very active and we're doing so many things. But to think that, wow, actually my soul is asleep. I can't do anything. I can only lift my arm by God's grace. I can only breathe by God's grace. He's somehow making it all possible. And, you know, I feel like I'm controlling and I know things. I don't know anything. Therefore, I require to actually hear from a pure source, and that goes into me very deeply. But to really enter into that in the right way, you're like living in a state of faith. You know, there's a great strength that comes from it. That's how you, maybe that's a way of knowing if it's the right way or the wrong way. Like you said, grungy, and sometimes we just feel very low and we lose strength because of it, or we lose determination. So it was nice how you balanced it, that, okay, I can do nothing. At the same time, I have to do it. I have to follow the order of Guru, and I have to live in this way, and I have to serve, and let me just do it and be grateful, and realizing that I'm always dependent on the Lord. So those two things have to somehow be combined, that I can do nothing, but yet I still have to do what I know to do from what I've heard from pure sources.
With full enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of Prabhupada's prayer, I think right at Boston Harbor, Jaladutta. So he writes in one of those poems, writes, he's praying to Krishna, he writes, I have no knowledge in devotion. So Prabhupada is really feeling he has no knowledge in devotion. And, you know, difficult to imagine, but he's really experiencing, he has no knowledge in devotion. And then he goes, I have full faith in the mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and chanting Hare Krishna. And then so, I mean, obviously, because we're talking about that growth edge balance, so that's the epitome.
Yeah.
Where there's no lamentation, wallowing, no grungy stuff, and obviously there's no pride. It's like, you know, inconceivable humility. Prabhupada's feeling he has no knowledge and devotion, and he has full enthusiasm to be used as an instrument for spreading Bhaktisiddhanta's mission.
Yeah, I was thinking when you just shared that, like, there's something there for us, you know, like, Prabhupada, I have no knowledge, I have no devotion, but Prabhupada claimed this in other places as well, but I do have complete faith in the words of my spiritual master, and in the holy name, he also says in some place, which is interesting because he's owning that, you know, it's like, I have nothing, but maybe there's something there for us to really meditate on, because it's almost like, well, I have nothing, I don't have. But something that he claimed as really owning is that he said in other places, if I have one thing to my credit, I was hearing one, you know, nice conversation, and Prabhupada was saying that actually the credit goes, the spreading the Krishna this goes to my disciples, the credit. He said that they have, that my spiritual master has sent them and so forth, and it is to their credit that all of this is happening. And he says that I have no credit. And then again, he goes back to me, but there's one thing that I have, that I can say that I have. And that was the faith and the order of my spiritual master, and the power of the holy name. And, you know, something there. It seems like something is there, because it's almost like I have nothing, but wait, we should have something very, you know, something to own, you know, like that faith in Guru.
So much there.
Yeah. So I'm grateful again for the opportunity to be with all of you. Thank you. And Balaram Jayanti ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ghanashyam. Very valuable.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you for
Grateful. Thank you.
giving us your association. Hare Krishna.
I'm always, and you're in this section of the Bhagavatam, which is very like